Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our second presentation as a part of the Berkshire's High Peaks Festival, which is a part of Close Encounters with Music. All of our sessions are being recorded and will be live streamed on YouTube and available for you all to see after they air. My name is Carolyn Regula, and I will be your host today for the presentation. Now, as I said before, the festival is a part of Close Encounters with Music. So the mission for Close Encounters is to engage the imagination of diverse concert audiences in a welcoming setting, to connect listeners to performers and composers, and foster the excitement and sense of community that live performance builds. They also aim to establish a comfortable listening environment and to turn performances into enriching, educational, and uplifting experiences. If you want to consider donating to Close Encounters with Music, I will include a link in the chat for you all to check out if you would like. Also in the chat, I will be including a list of resources for you all that have been selected by our presenter today, and these are going to be very helpful and supplement her talk. So I will include those momentarily. I am so excited for you all to hear our presentation today. If you have questions for our guest speaker, please use the Q&A window at the bottom of your screen. You can type your questions there, and I will communicate them to our guest speaker. Joining us tonight, we have one of our faculty pianists, Antoinette Perry. She has performed throughout the United States, Germany, France, England, and over 15 cities of the People's Republic of China. She has many incredible performances, one of them including the 150th anniversary at the Aspen Music Festival, and she currently teaches at the Southern California Thornton School of Music. So it is with great pleasure that I hand this over to Antoinette Perry.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. She disappeared, so I'm all alone. I can't see any of you, and I just have to kind of imagine your faces. But if you get bored or something, put that in the chat. Please change the subject. Or if you don't get it at all, put that in the chat. Or if you get it but you don't agree, put that in the chat so I can feel like we have a little bit of a communication going back and forth. We hear a lot about playing our instruments. That's where our primary focus is. It's difficult just to learn how to play our instrument. It's difficult to learn the art of music, and there's so much that goes into that. I've been around a long time, and I've been looking at other things that we need to do besides that, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of this too, but it's always good to be reminded. The first part of my talk is it's going to focus on what we are besides musicians. We're athletes, we're actors, we're missionaries for music, we're healers, philosophers, artists, psychologists, and hopefully business people. The second part of my talk, we'll talk about what can we do to become better artists besides just practicing. The third part, you've heard from your excellent teachers how important it is to relax, and I'll talk a little bit about how to achieve that physically and mentally, which will lead to the fourth part, which I think is kind of apropos to our times now, how to find more joy in our lives. It's been a little bit harder lately. It's been a little more challenging. So I'd like to, as an old person who's been around a while, they do say they have old people, and old people, contrary to what you might think, end up the happiest group of people, and I think it's because we've developed some tools to help us enjoy our lives, which also makes us better artists and musicians, of course. I think you will get the relationship there. So we are athletes. You've probably heard this. We sometimes we feel like we don't have time to exercise, but I must say my most successful students are those who definitely exercise. We need to have a full body technique involved in our practice for music. Make sure you make room for exercise. Make sure you know what you're eating. If you don't know much about good nutrition, definitely get a book, start learning about it, because we are what we eat. We have to concentrate. We need a lot of calories in order to, we eat more than other people, because even thinking in conjunction with moving our bodies requires a lot of calories, requires a lot of protein, not much sugar, going easy on the alcohol, I'm sure you might guess. Things like that. It's important to pay attention to. It's important to pay attention to your body and how it feels in relationship to what you've just eaten, because each body is a little different too. So, also, of course, getting enough rest. Sometimes we might be nervous, we might not sleep enough, but just getting the rest, making sure you spend enough time in bed the night before a concert, but in general, because of the kind of energy we need to practice. We're actors, right? We've got to communicate our emotions just as actors do. Scientists have used actors in finding out what kinds of chemicals are related to different emotions in our bodies. Chemicals are related to different emotions. If we play and we just do what our teacher tells us, rather than feeling it deeply inside ourselves with those chemicals, that there's something magical that can happen when you are feeling those emotions internally. It's very important to actually feel them. They come across for some strange reason, that there is a magical thing that happens between performer and audience if you're feeling it. And you've probably heard of the Stanislavski method in acting. Oh, I should have put that in one of the resources. The art of, I think it's the art of the actor. If any of you knows it, please put it down. That Stanislavski. Peter, put it in the chat. Stanislavski wrote this wonderful book, and it has a lot to do with this. There was a time when actors just felt if they did the right things and portrayed the right things externally to the audience, it would come across. And that school of acting is definitely on the outs as of the last century. We realize, like with Marlon Brando, you might not have to project something quite as much, but you got to feel it inside. We're missionaries for music. Keep your eye on the ball. Sometimes we think very much about ourselves. How is this going to work? How successful is my career going right now? I only want Carnegie Hall. I want the major things to happen, otherwise I'm not getting anywhere. Please don't think that way, because every little thing we do helps us. We're missionaries for classical music, and it helps propel that. It helps other people's lives. We're healers. Definitely remember you are a healer. I have a student who started the medicinal music makers, and students play in the hospitals at USC. Now they're doing it virtually online, and it's healing both for the students and for the people who are listening. We tend to forget this when we're in school. We play juries, and the teachers are there, and they're judging us, and they write the comments, and we forget what it's really about. So when I have students play concerts, I do require them to play a run-through out in the community for other people. I require them to learn how to do that themselves, and they're just always so happy they've done it. It reminds them about, you know, what we're here for. After a doctoral oral exam once, last year actually over Zoom, a student of mine, you know, the oral exam, the teachers are here asking questions, what do you know? And how he ended it was, may I ask you a question? And his question was, you know, are musicians selfless or selfish? And we had a very lively discussion after that. It's, you know, and maybe we're selfish in that we're doing what we love. Maybe we're selfish in that we get a lot back from other people when we do that. Interesting thing to think about. We're philosophers. I think to understand German music particularly requires a lot of reflection. You know, Shakespeare's idea of the fate versus man's reaction to fate is throughout his music, and you've heard the term the Tempest Sonata. He was asked what that sonata meant, as well as the Appassionata Sonata. A couple people, you know, just didn't understand what they were so different from what came before. And he said, read Shakespeare's The Tempest, and it's not a direct application of the storm and all that, but it is, you know, down deep. It is about fate and man's reaction to it. For example, the Tempest Sonata. And then, so you can guess which is the fate motive, because it. So you hear that motive in the beginning, obviously fate, before it's sort of a precursor to fate, or it's lurking around the corner. And then when it comes out, we're pleading with it. This maybe it's our fear of fate, you know. So the third and closing theme in that. That is probably maybe our reconciliation with fate. It suddenly is very harmonic. And you have the eighth notes, but they're done in a more relaxed, a little bit more settled way. Maybe we're okay with fate, but then it comes back in the peak. So it goes back and forth for that. So as philosophers, we can be looking at these pieces in those ways. Read Goethe, read Dante. We're also artists. When you look at French music, you know, I've noticed coming from Germany to France sometimes that it's so interesting. You go over the border and suddenly everything changes. The light becomes a bit more diffused. I don't know, it's sort of like the little bit of, from the Atlantic Ocean, there's a little bit of cloud cover or something that changes. There we go. Oh, good. You're putting everything in the chat. Thank you, Carolyn. Yeah, so the whole atmosphere in France is different from the atmosphere in Germany. So the French, and you look at the language too, the French are much more sensual. They're much more about painting. You know, you look at the Impressionists and the responses to those. Here's Debussy's Prelude Bruyère, which is just about fog. It's much more visual, but also sensual at the same time. You look at Liszt in the more romantic way. He's painting pictures, definitely, of where he's been, his journeys. We're business people, supposedly. I'm not. But I think it's very helpful if you learn how to be a business person, and a little bit it has helped people's careers very much. We're all definitely psychologists. I think musicians, we mature earlier in our lives. We have to deal with stage fright, which is actually the #1 fear in America, or it was 20 to 30 years ago when it was investigated. It is definitely something we've got to ask ourselves a lot of questions, you know. Why are we afraid? Or even, why are we doing music instead of something that's going to make us wealthy? We definitely have a lot of things to think about, and we have to analyze ourselves and our motivations very much in order to be a successful musician, I feel. If your parents don't think you should go into music, you're looking at that. There's a lot of relationship things that might come into play. So definitely we become mature when we're early. These questions are deep that we have to ask ourselves. What can we do to become better artists? Definitely you must read great literature if you can. I have a student who's really phenomenal, very, very phenomenal, but when he plays Russian music, he doesn't quite feel deeply the soul of the Russian, you know, the inner suffering that a Russian has had to go through these years. Definitely, if you look at their history, it's hard. If you look at the weather, it's hard. There's a lot of suffering, and so there's a lot of deep expression that has to happen. And if we're not from there, definitely reading great literature from there, Dostoevsky to Tolstoy, you know, great Solzhenitsyn, great literature can really help us feel through their eyes a little bit more, rather than just trying to bring it out from our own lives. So we have Beethoven, where you've got, you know, we have the Fate, and we have, so the second movement of the last sonata is about inner peace. And then we go to Russian music. This is the Rachmaninoff's G sharp minor prelude. Very, very deep personal expression. typical Beethoven work, but this is very powerful in a different way. So reading great literature will help us understand that. You've probably all heard this, don't just listen to your own instrument. Pianists, we've got to listen to great singers, great orchestras, go to plays, dance concerts, museums, get to know our composer by listening to music he composed in other idioms. It really broadens our outlook of the pieces. As pianists, we've really got to know how to imitate singers and be free. We need to be able to feel through the notes. I often tell my students to maybe exchange lessons with voice students so they can learn to work between the notes. It helps their musicianship. Orchestras help you feel music. Maybe, first of all, just hearing the different instruments in our minds helps our imagination. It also helps us feel the kind of expression that an orchestra produces, which is different from the personal expression of a piano. Maybe an orchestra soloist sometimes will have the opportunity to show a more personal expression. But if you play the piano and you're trying to make everything personal, that is more of a universal type expression, expressing the whole of humanity rather than one person's individual feelings. Again, there's Beethoven. Beethoven he has so many different feelings in his music. But this, if you try to be too personal, it doesn't work. There's an inner suspense in this that actually the sternness of an orchestra can create, and if we imagine the orchestra, we can feel that better. It's very suspenseful. Personal. So then you can imagine one soloist playing that. Listening to orchestras, you'll get these feelings better. Of course, you want to go to plays since we're actors, dances, and we should also learn to dance. How can we play a waltz if we can't dance the waltz? The rhythm is just so quirky, the feeling, the lift on the second beat, having the second beat come a little earlier. You can't really do that just by telling the student, play this, second beat softer, it's a little earlier. Now, they have to feel it. They have to learn to dance. At my parties, sometimes my students will arrange going to dances together and they won't let me go with them. It makes me kind of sad, but they want me to know they're arranging it. It doesn't have to be waltzes, ballroom dances even. It can be anything. Develop your own personality. We do, all of us teachers, we see the student progressing personally as they get older. We hear the depth coming into their music. We can't do that for them. We can't give them that kind of soul that happens with growth, inner growth. They have to learn love as well as discipline. They must not let too much technical practice get in the way of their expressing love and their musicality or passion or whatever it may be. So love what you're doing every time. You also learn faster when you're loving what you're doing. That has also been scientifically proven. Patience. I don't remember where I heard this quote, but the best artists are the ones who have the most patience with themselves. If you expect to make mistakes, we're all perfectionists, I must say, or we wouldn't be where we are now. We have to kind of let go of that. We want to practice for that, but in our practicing, we must expect mistakes and not beat ourselves up over it. Even when we're performing, you make them. How many people perform perfectly? You know, so I would want to make sure that we're living in the moment. The audience isn't thinking, oh my God, that person, they just really messed up. It's ruining the whole evening for me. I doubt that, Or I'll tell my student, before their jury, do you think this faculty member is going to go home and say, oh my God, Sheila was so terrible, it's going to ruin my day? So you have to think realistically. Yes, we all make mistakes. We all make mistakes in important concerts. But if you're focused on the music and on the present and not worrying about the mistake, I bet you the audience is not going to notice that mistake the way you did, or even notice it at all. I've noticed with my students too, they'll say afterwards, oh, I'm sorry, I messed up. And I'll say, gosh, I didn't even notice. It was so compelling the way you made that music. So keep that in mind and have patience with yourself. It helps you also learn faster. Also, when you criticize yourself, it really disrupts your concentration and your energy, and we don't want to do that. This next one, I think, is a very important one: humility. Don't let successes take away your humility. You will stop learning, and we all learn our entire lives as musicians. We all hopefully get better and better, and that's what keeps us engaged. And we're doing this for music. We don't want to stop learning. You can't learn without humility. Appreciate other people. Don't let their wonderful performance make you jealous, envious, anything like that. Appreciate it for what it is, and then you will learn from it and help your own performance. Curiosity, of course, everybody talks about that. You've got to maintain your curiosity. Very, very important. Same kind of thing. You must always, as Eric Anderson said yesterday, chamber music is, you learn from other people playing chamber music. It's wonderful, and you need to be open. If they don't feel music the same way you do, be open to it. See what you can learn from them. Great artists, I think, play a lot of chamber music. Inner calm, work on that. We'll talk about that with meditation. It's very hard to concentrate without inner calm, which comes from some of these other things I've talked about. Courage. We need a lot of courage, and self-confidence. It arises out of all these other aspects I've mentioned. Of course, we need good preparation and discipline, but courage, I don't know, it's really tough. I remember before my first solo recital, a month before, my teacher, she saw that I was yellow. I was jaundiced, and she thought something was wrong with my liver, but it was really, I just hadn't slept for so long. And this was a whole month before my recital. So she sent me to the doctor and armed me with tranquilizers. And I went out to play my junior recital, and I thought, nobody's shooting me. Somewhere deep inside, I thought somebody was going to shoot me. So that taught me a very good lesson. It gave me more courage. And also regarding stage fright, if you don't think of others as looking in at you and judging you, and only think of looking outwards, this is good for life, not just performing on a stage. If you look outwards, and it's all about loving the audience, loving the music, and trying to send that out to the audience. Send your love for the music and what's great about the music. That stage fright kind of goes away. You might be really nervous before, which is fine. It gives you energy. There's nothing wrong with that. Just that in life too, just think about sending things outwards rather than feeling diminished by somebody else's thoughts about you. Okay, enough of what we can do to develop ourselves as artists. I'm thinking too, our productivity is enhanced if we learn to relax better. I'm sure you've learned about posture. As a certified yoga teacher, I guess I can tell you a little bit about posture. You know, how does that help you relax? It seems a little bit stiffening, but if you think of your spine holding your body up and the muscles relaxing, the spine can only hold your body up if there is sort of a straight line here from your ear down through the center of your body. Think of this part of your body lifting, the sternum lifting. Think about the outside of your body relaxing downwards, because if you're not sitting up straight, you might do this for a while, and you may, after you're doing it for a while, you may sense, oh gosh, it's a little tight back here, because it's trying to hold your head up. The gravity's trying to pull this big bowling ball down, and you need something to hold it up. This gets tight, everything gets a little tight, and it becomes difficult to play. So you want to make sure that the sternum lifts, your head's not like that, because you want the back of your neck not compressed but long. So look, my chin goes down and back. We're so used to thinking of the front of our bodies. So when we think of standing up straight, we'll do this, but actually the spine is much more important. So when we do this, the spine shortens. We want to keep it long. That keeps it much more relaxed. Also, the bottom of our spine, I have a problem with overdoing arching this way. You want to also keep that long, and maybe a little bit of a candy cane effect here, so that this doesn't do this when we're over trying to sit up straight. That might not be everybody's problem. Some people sit like this, of course, but that you want to make sure, that's partly why we need to exercise. We want our core to be strong so that the core is holding us up rather than the head holding up like this and this falling down and making the muscles work to hold the head up. That helps with relaxation. You've probably heard about the importance of breathing, especially if you're a singer or a wind player. And I think also if you're a string player. Piano players don't hear that quite as often. We have other things we're thinking about. But breathing is really important. It's important for everybody all day long. You want to make sure that your breathing is abdominal and not chest breathing where it goes up and down. So first, you can start by exhaling everything out. It's very important. Then the body will take that air, make the diaphragm relax downwards, so the air just naturally comes in. Then you press it out a little bit gently, and then you allow it to come in. Notice our skeleton. It starts with smaller circles up here, gets bigger down here, and then the last few ribs are actually floating. That allows more room for more breath to come in. Also, they've proven that this kind of chest breathing, which it seems to me everybody has learned to do, and they didn't as a baby, but since then I think stresses do that. This kind of chest breathing sends us into the fight or flight response, makes us more nervous. This abdominal breathing initiates the parasympathetic nervous system, which relaxes us. It's the relaxation response. The other is the sympathetic nervous system. So if you can throughout the day, I know we musicians are under a lot of pressure. We have to spend a lot of time practicing, and still doing other things too that everybody else does. We have to remind ourselves what it feels like to breathe abdominally throughout the day. It actually saves us, it gives us more energy with the oxygen. If you're breathing more slowly and more deeply and without big pauses, there is more of a chance for oxygen to be absorbed in your lungs. If you're breathing through the chest, you don't get a lot of air at once, so you breathe a lot faster. And the oxygen doesn't get as absorbed. Oxygen's important in relaxing your muscles in order to allow you to play better. This book that's is in the chat, or will be in the chat, is called Breath, is very, very interesting in this regard. I mean, we've all known this, but this is a very in-depth study that just came out recently. Very interesting book. Body scanning. You know, as performances approach, we feel more and more tension in our bodies. If you're really aware of your body, you want to become aware of your body so that you have a little more control over it. I realize even when I get out of bed in the morning, sometimes I feel a little tense, and I'll sit down to meditate and I'll feel, oh, okay, gosh, there's tension there, I've got to get rid of it. So there's tension there a lot of times, and you can take a couple minutes throughout the day here and then and close your eyes and breathe and feel that tension go away. Body scanning, I can do a little bit of it with you right now. You can take, get into your breathing, the deep abdominal breathing. You can tell if it's abdominal if when you inhale, this goes out, and you exhale, this goes in. Getting into that abdominal breathing, and maybe focus first on your forehead. As you inhale, feel that forehead. Feel if there's any tension. As you exhale, release. Feel it. Feel the air kind of coming out of that space and releasing. And you could do that with about 5 breaths. You might find with each breath, you'll be a little more relaxed. You can move to the eye sockets. You can move to the cheekbones. You can move to the jaw, the back of the jaw. You can move to the front of the jaw, relax your lips. You can relax your nose. 5 breaths each. Just see, you may find when you're relaxing something here, something else relaxes at the same time. But always maintaining your posture, no matter what you do. You can move to the back of your neck. Just close your eyes. Make sure you've got a long back of your neck with the chin tucked down, and see what happens when you exhale if you imagine that air going out of that. And this is a very rushed version of this. You can go to your shoulders, down your arms. If there's a finger, for example, your teacher says has some tension that you have to relax, you can practice using your breath and imagining the exhale of the breath coming out through the finger. It seems to be helpful in relaxation. So it kind of leads me to mental health here. Relaxation of the body leads to relaxation of the brain and vice versa. I think it's obvious to you all why mental health is important to us. I didn't mention, if you have difficulty with this correct kind of breathing, look up the crocodile pose in yoga. Find a picture of it. You're face down, you're doing this, the back of your neck is long and you breathe. When you're lying face down and doing that, you have to breathe the right way. Somehow you can't breathe the wrong way. And I do tell people when they wake up in the morning, if they're sitting in bed thank you. There's a crocodile yoga pose down in the chat, I think. When you wake up in the morning, if if you're not jumping out of bed right away, you might consider rolling over, getting on the floor where it's a little more solid, and just lying like that for 5 or 10 minutes. You get your body breathing in the right way for the day. So anyway, mental health is so important in music. It leads depression, as you know. I mean, it's obvious. If you feel sad or depressed, it's harder to concentrate. It's harder to practice. It takes our energy away. So we need to work on our mental health. Cultivating joy in times of darkness. You can is the sort of the title of the next part of this talk. What we know of the light, we learn in the dark. Maybe some of you have learned some more tools to help during this pandemic, because I'm sure it was challenging for all of us. Some of us more than others. Certainly, I've seen the difference in my students. A lot of them were having a difficult time. Depression, and if you look at all the major religions, they will tell you depression leads you to searching. It leads you to actually finding more light afterwards because you've done some searching. So you can come out of the pandemic with a little bit better tools, and you may end up happier afterwards than you were before. So experience the dark as an opportunity to learn, to figure out what helps make your life more joyful. The mind-body connection is real. Of course, I talked about exercise, eating, nutritiously, exercise regularly. It is definitely real. If you believe in science, the scientists have proven this. Taking care of your body really helps. Breath connects the body and the mind. If you breathe properly, that's going to help your mind relax also. So keep your breaths deep, slow, and continual from the abdomen. Okay, I'm repeating myself. Is anybody complaining? I don't know. That's very important. It's so important. So meditation is something that has helped a lot of people. I had some chronic depression when I was young. It was not a good thing, especially when I was raising 3 little kids and I was crying all day. I had to learn to do something about it. It was difficult, but I learned to meditate. It changes your brain. It actually changes the structure of your brain. Scientists have proven that too. Now I can't get depressed even if I try. there's something, it's just not happening. Now, who knows, something may happen in my life where I will, but it has been many decades now that I've managed just fine. And I've managed to be actually very happy. So meditation changes the anxiety dominant beta waves to alpha waves, which help us concentrate more. And perhaps the deeper theta waves, which are linked to creativity. So if you can learn to meditate, and a lot of you are meditating when you are practicing naturally. Musicians are able to access those alpha concentration waves better. And then when they get deeper, slower brain waves, you can access that inner creativity and things come out of you that you don't even plan. You know, I know when I'm teaching, sometimes I'll think, I need to tell that student something, but I don't really know I don't know what's wrong, you know, so I'll say, well, just get up a second, I'm gonna play, and then I'll play, and then I'll say, oh, see, this is what you have to feel, this is what maybe, you know, and it's like it didn't even come from my conscious mind. If you can access those deeper waves, you feel like the music is playing you, rather than consciously playing each note, and I think that's where you access your deepest artistry. So it's interesting, I don't know if you all know Kobe Bryant, the very famous basketball player who was just amazing, you know, from far away, he's very relaxed, from far away he gets these balls, it just looks like, you know, magic. Well, he actually studied music with a friend of mine because he said, when I hear music, I feel in the zone, which is how I am when I'm playing well. So he actually studied some piano with her because he was so curious about this relationship. A still mind will increase your awareness of the love, which is your very nature. It is your inner healer, and it can connect you much more to music that way too, your love for music. Watch your mind, watch your thoughts. They're not you. Surprisingly enough, they're coming from your brain, which is maybe the little you. The big you is the part of you that's witnessing and watching those thoughts that are coming in your brain. And believe it or not, you can control them. If you have negative thoughts, change them to positive thoughts. And you may have a habit of certain negative thoughts. Recognize that when they come up and laugh at them. You know, just laugh at them. Oh my God, there's that again. You know, I'm all worried about what so-and-so's thinking of me, or something like that. Laugh at it. Put some positive thoughts in your mind. You know, get some ready. So that you'll know what to do, but there's always something positive that you can find out of every situation. Look for that. It's surprising. Sometimes we really, especially when we're depressed, it's really hard to believe we can control what we're thinking and change what we're thinking, but we can't because we are not our brain. Life is 10% what happens and 90% how we react to that. Shakespeare said, nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And John Milton said, the mind can make a heaven of hell or a hell of heaven. I had a very good friend, Peggy Sheffield, who accompanied singers. Some of the singers were better than others. Some were difficult. You know, other people would think it was difficult. And she would sit in the room and just play all day and smile and be happy no matter how good they were. It was so obvious. And a friend asked her once, you know, how can you be so happy and smile so much when you're going over and over this passage with somebody who's not very good? And she said, well, in my mind, I'm at the beach. You know, that really made an impression on me. In your mind, you can be at the beach. Just twist things around a little bit. Practice love. It's very helpful. We're lucky. We're doing something with music. It connects us to life's mysteries. It connects us to each other. We all love music, and so we have an opportunity to feel love throughout our whole practice session. It's very important to do that. So we want to love ourselves, we want to love what we do, we want to practice compassion for other people. Don't feel guilty if you are not suffering and they're suffering. That's important. But anyway, in helping other people, you're helping yourself, because it takes your mind away from your inner dramas, your own stories, really helps you get out of yourself. I'm sure you've noticed people who volunteer a lot seem to be very happy people who do things that help others. It's been very obvious to me. And our love of music relieves the suffering of others. Keep your eye on that ball. It brings purpose to our lives, which leads to joy. We need purpose. A lot of people retire and they feel no purpose anymore. They're not very happy. Some people retire happy. Some people have a hard time. But the people who are happy retired people do find a sense of purpose also. I think it's important. Practice non-judgment of yourself and others. We were talking about judging in your own practicing certainly impedes love. It impedes your relationship to the music. Don't judge other people too. It's another negative thought. That doesn't help. Looking outwards again at people rather than thinking of them looking inwards at you. Live in the present. It's good. I'm sure you've heard this a lot. This is a very common thing nowadays, living in the moment. If you really look at yourself and your thoughts, you can see how difficult this is. It's very, very difficult to live in the present. Depression's rooted in the past, but a lot of our thoughts are in the past. A lot of our thoughts are in the future. I think too, we as musicians are a little bit obsessive compulsive. I remember we have to be, because we have to practice so much. And I remember taking one of my children to counseling, and the counselor saying, "Michael, you're just needling your mom like this. You're just obsessive compulsive." He says, "Your parents are musicians. That means they're obsessive compulsive. I mean, take this with a grain of salt. And you are too." And so that was very interesting. So we want to make sure we don't obsess over the past. We don't obsess over the future, so that we can enjoy the present moment. I think this takes a lifetime of effort. I can talk about it. It doesn't mean it's easy for me, but it certainly makes a huge difference when I'm able to really enjoy every bit of the present. It helps us appreciate the beauty around us even more. How often you go for a walk and you're in a beautiful place and you're thinking about something else. But get out in nature. It's very important. I remember, I tell this to my students all the time, it makes a difference in their playing. If they sit home and practice all the time, they're not experiencing that relaxed communication with the spirits of nature. I feel, I had a student, she had an important competition the next day. She played for me. It was pretty awful. it just, I just could tell, no, this is not going to make it. And I just said, just don't practice anymore. Just go to the beach. At least in LA you could do that. But other places, I'm sure you have places that you can go into nature and to enjoy it. So she did what I said, and she won the competition the next day. I've actually had students, and I remember one also was playing the Rachmaninoff Second Sonata with not much feeling, and she practiced maybe too much. But it's hard to keep that feeling going if you don't take a lot of breaks. And I just said to her, why don't you just not practice this the rest of the day and play it for me again tomorrow? Don't practice it tomorrow before you play it for me. The next day, she played it so fabulously. I was bawling afterwards. I was in tears. It was so amazing. Without any additional practice. Now, of course, I'm talking about people who practice all the time and don't take enough breaks in their day. Physically, you need to take a lot of breaks. Physically, you need to stretch. I have a little time, so I can talk about stretching. You want to hold. It's very important. We're contracting our muscles all the time when we play, and it's very important to stretch them every which way. Now you can't quite see me. I'm pushing the ceiling away, and I feel my ribs separate, and I stay there for 60 seconds. That's when your body generally can actually relax. And then I might do this. If you do this very, very slowly, you might feel little stretches going on in your forearm and all the way down, and you're pushing the walls away. There's also maybe putting your hands in a clasp back here and trying to touch your elbows. That really, really helps open this up, which helps, of course, with our posture. We're doing this a lot of us, we instrumentalists do this a lot. This needs to be stretched out every day. And I tell my students when they're entering a practice room, they can put this, their arms in the door frame and sit there for a while. Or like this in the door frame, just to stretch this out. But you need to stay in stretches for 60 seconds. You need to breathe during them. You need to take lots of breaks when you practice so things are fresher and your muscles can relax. We need to save our muscles. But this is, again, what doctors have come up with. Very, very important, the stretching. For pianists, stretching the forearm against the wall. Wonder if I can do this. Yeah, there's this for 60 seconds, and then the other hand for 60 seconds. When you feel tight, there's this. You want to put your wrist on the wall, so you're pointing backwards for 60 seconds in the other hand, then pointing forwards again, then pointing down, keeping your shoulder down, then opening up your hand and rotating your forearm. Sometimes I'm so tight. This has happened with students too. You're so tight from practicing something difficult a lot of hours, and it's amazing how this can relieve that. I remember having to do the Bartok 2 piano and percussion piece in Aspen, and the day before and the day of, we were rehearsing all day. I thought, oh my God, how am I going to be able to play it that night too? That every time we stopped to talk or something, I was up at the wall doing this, and it was fine. It would not have been fine, I'm sure, but that kind of thing, the stretching is very, very important. Also, strengthening your back up here helps pull your shoulders back, helps you sit up more easily too, because you don't want to be actively pushing them back when you're playing. You want to be relaxed here. So stretching this out, contracting these muscles, they will do that naturally if you're stronger here. lying on your stomach and getting in an airplane position and tightening your core, exhaling as you lift off the floor in this position or this position, and breathing and staying there. So the whole upper part of your body is off the floor when you're lying face down on the floor. That helps strengthen your back too, which should help relaxation. So I'd like to ask you to resolve to keep happy. This is going to help you in your lives. It's going to help you in your music making. You need to resolve to do that. Don't feel that you have no choice, that you're sad, that you're feeling negative emotions in any way, guilt or jealousy or whatever. You don't have to feel that. Watch yourself, watch your feelings, watch your brain, and keep track of it and control it. You can, believe it or not. Some people don't resolve to keep happy. They kind of like feeling sorry for themselves a little bit. And ask yourself, am I one of those people? But otherwise, resolve to keep happy, resolve to look at the silver lining in any situation. There's usually something. And I had a wonderful Indian in my study of yoga, the philosophical yoga also. I had a wonderful Indian teacher who said something to me that was very, very valuable to me. I'll never forget. Actually, he said it to a lot of people, but it really touched me. He said, don't suffer what there is to suffer, but enjoy what there is to enjoy. I'm going to leave you with that because to me that says everything in a nutshell. Don't suffer what there is to suffer, but enjoy what there is to enjoy. Now, Carolyn, did you get any questions or any complaints or anything you want to ask?
Sure. Well, I promise there was no complaints.
Okay.
I think everyone, like myself, was very mesmerized by what you had to say. And thank you so much for sharing so many personal stories of your own. I know that takes a lot of personal courage to do. So
Not at all. I just want to help people. So, yeah.
I think that's absolutely beautiful. And I think while we give people time to type things in the chat, for those of you with us, you can use the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. I have a question that I would love to pose to you while people take some time and go in the Q&A window. Everything you said, what I loved about what you said was I feel like a lot of it is applicable to musicians in any stage of their career. You know, these are all valuable things to think about. And I know a lot of our participants are in the undergrad through master's age or late high school. And I know you yourself teach at a conservatory. And I would be curious to know, amongst your students, if you noticed any of this advice was specifically helpful for this age group or people in this stage of life, the higher education stage.
I really don't feel differences in age groups, except maybe you'll find older people have learned a lot of this stuff maybe a little bit more, but there are people in the younger age group that know it all. I have students who, especially those who have been through grave difficulties in their lives. They've had a lot of trauma, a lot of abuse, who are the happiest students because they have been through this training, watching themselves, learning from this, and they end up being happier. I think of course, I've been around a while, I've taught a while, and I've observed this, and sometimes I'm very surprised when I hear what somebody's been through. Or, as a teacher, all my friends who teach, they say, well, psychology is involved very much in everything. So if they haven't been through that, if we're their only people working on their mind, then we do that, But it's very, very important to work out problems that make us feel less than happy. And it really helps the musicianship of people. It helps relax them. It helps opening them up to inspiration from the music. Otherwise, they're working so hard. They work so hard to feel well enough to play. Life is harder, and I certainly know. And I tell them too, when I was young, I was very shy and I could hardly talk to anybody. So when I have a shy student, I'll say, you can change, look at me, and they'll think, what, you are that shy? I'm there, oh yeah, so anybody can change and become somebody else. But I do have students who've really learned a lot of this already. So, of course, they're maybe less likely to have done that at that age. But, people are people, and I don't see a lot of differences in age groups, except like the first breakup. You think, I can never go on after this. This is really intense. And then by the 10th breakup, you think, I'll find somebody else. It's all worked out, and this is hard, but I know there's life after this. So some of it is just you've experienced those things more, and you can get beyond them. So, but people are people. I think my students, all of you are very, very mature people. You've had to question a lot already as musicians, and there's certainly no lack of maturity among music students, I feel. So, does that answer your question?
It does. Not by age, but when your first relationship doesn't go.
Oh. Oh yeah, it can be really hard on a young person. Yeah.
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 Well, I'm curious because a lot of people in conservatories, and I was so guilty of this, and I'm sometimes still guilty of this, thinking, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time to do. I know it's good for me to do, and I should be doing this, but I don't have enough time. And I'm curious if you have any advice on, a way for people to think about that mentality, or no, actually this can take like 5 minutes and you definitely have 5 minutes or something. If you've ever heard that a lot from students.
Oh yes, definitely. I'm glad you asked that. It's very important. Everybody feels that way, right? Now exercise takes time. It may just take 20 minutes. You're running outside for 20 minutes. You get a lot done in 20 minutes if you're running. You just put on your shoes. And what happens is it just makes the rest of your day more efficient. You might not have to practice quite so much. Your concentration will be better. If you meditate a little through the day, your concentration's better. You don't have to spend as much time with the brain, going off here or going off there. That takes a lot of time too. As far as eating goes, I always just carried around fruit and nuts and ate them all day. I eat them when I'm practicing. I eat them while I'm teaching. Everybody knows that doesn't have to take any time. So eating well doesn't. Now, resting 8 hours a night, that does take time, and that is very, very important. And a lot of doctors will say that's the most important, at least 7 hours a night. So you want to make sure you don't save that paper for the last night. You have to stay up all night because it's very hard to get over that. And the brain is learning while you're asleep. They've proven that the students who stay up all night studying actually do less well, because you need the sleep to bring that knowledge into longer term storage in the brain. All the neuroscientists are saying that. So you have to make time for sleep. and for the 20 minutes of exercise every day. The eating, you could take no time for that if you want. No extra time. I mean, you want to eat, but yeah, nuts and fruit, I mean, you got just about everything in that, and it doesn't take much time. Studentenfutter is what they call it in Germany. It's a mixture of dried fruit and nuts. It's the same as trail mix. They used to sell over there when I was there. Studentenfutter. I survived on that. 1 mark for 1 bag of that, and just yeah.
Wow.
Well,
I can definitely speak personally from experience. I've had a situation where I'm in a practice room and there's this one section and I'm just going and going and going and it's just not clicking, and I used to get very frustrated by that, and then I would wake up the next day and I could play it. And after a while I started noticing that pattern, and instead of getting frustrated, I would say, you know what, I'm just gonna go to sleep, and tomorrow
yes,
it'll be resolved. So I've definitely experienced that phenomenon you mentioned about learning in your sleep.
That expression, sleep on it, it really works. Yeah, and there's also, you may spend a whole year trying to get what your teacher's telling you. I remember telling my ex-husband, who was my teacher and a great teacher, and I wanted to learn from him. I said, I'm trying to get this student to learn this, and she just doesn't learn it, and it's been a year. He says, wait till after summer vacation. Sure enough, she came back and it was fine. You know? So it's interesting, you know, even the subconscious works on things. So yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of these wonderful ideas and concepts. And we're getting thank yous in the chat. People seem to have really enjoyed what you've had to say. I know, even though my camera was off, I was doing some of your stretches as you were demonstrating. And it was a wonderful way to end the day. Do you have any final parting words you would like to say to the people watching before we close? We didn't get any additional questions, but anything you'd like to offer, I'm sure they'd love to hear.
Well, I just think if you have any personal question, you can email me, aperry, APERRY, @usc.edu. If there's a question you might have that you don't want to share with others, who knows, you can always email me, and I'm always happy to talk to you over email or phone. And I can't say it was a pleasure talking to you because I can't see anybody. It's just very strange not to see people's faces, but I hope you all got something out of this that helps you yourself. And thank you so much, Carolyn. Thank you for your questions and your help.
It was my pleasure, and thank you for that generous offer for people to contact you. I understand some questions might be more personal, and people might not want to share that, and that's absolutely okay. I did put your email in the Zoom chat if people would like to reach out to you personally. So that's in the chat as a resource for you all, and I actually do want to
I love your cat.
There he goes. He was in the bedroom and somehow escaped, so I'm not sure.
That's good. We like seeing animals.
There you go. And to give you guys one more thing to see tonight, we have our first Moonlight Sonata concert, and that is premiering in 15 minutes. Very exciting. We have a wonderful collection of performances by faculty and some of our High Peaks participants. So if you guys want to see that immediately after this talk, you know, get to close your evening with some beautiful music, that link is in the chat as well. And I will share one more time our calendar where you guys can see the rest of our talks. We have talks presentations and master classes throughout August 2nd. August 2nd will be our last event. So that is also in the chat. And thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you again, Antoinette Perry. It was an absolutely lovely talk. It was a pleasure. And we want to wish you all a good night, afternoon, morning, wherever you are, but here it's night. And we hope to see you at a future talk.
Thank you, Carolyn.